All right.
Well, I'm very honored and pleasured, or it's a great pleasure to welcome Kim Simon. She is a great country music artist who lives in Alberta, Canada. So thank you very much, Kim, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. So I wish to begin by asking you about your recent trip to Nashville, which you took with Martina Dawn, your daughter, great country music artist, as well as a previous guest on the podcast.
Yeah, no, it was great and it was hot because now here it is totally full of snow and I did not want to come home. But other than that, yeah, Nashville is always a great place. I mean, if you have you been there before?
No, I have not.
You need to go if you're a country music lover or any kind of music lover.
Mhm.
You need to go for sure. But I mean, that is where music happens. That
Oh,
is
yeah.
the hub of all, country music, any kind of music, really. But yeah, it was a great trip. We went primarily for Martina, as you said, she's my daughter. I've been in the music industry for 20-ish years, and now bringing her up into it is pretty cool. And one of my favorite moments, I mean, watching her work and watching her do things for the first time. She did her first video for the first time there. We had some meetings, she did a photo shoot, but watching her do all that stuff was just so, as a lot of people say, surreal and just I'm so proud of her and where she's gotten to. And we got to walk down Music Row, which was where I recorded my first time
Wow.
in Nashville, was right on Music Row. And so we walked down that street. I took some pictures of her where I took pictures, 22-ish years ago. So it was very cool. I had some teary moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. And because I was with my mom at that time. So it was just so special for me to be there with her for her first real trip to Nashville. She's been a couple times with me when she was younger. So, but this was her first, real work trip. And I was just proud to be there with her. And it was a great time.
That's awesome. Yeah, I believe the purpose of the trip is to film a music video, right, for her single, Pretending.
Yeah, yeah, she did a music video for Pretending, which should be out in the next month or so. So yeah, we'll get more details on that for you. Just keep a watch out on her socials. But yeah, she did the video, she did a photo shoot. We had some meetings. I'm a promoter up here in Canada as well, and
Wow.
so I had some meetings, to get some talent up here for our festivals and shows that we put on. So yeah, it was a lot of stuff in 8 days.
Hmm. Yeah, I listened to that song of hers and it was amazing. I look forward to the music
You
video.
like it?
Oh yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's a really sweet music video and it really shows her talent now in acting too, which
Mm.
we didn't think it would be that much of that detailed of a video, but yeah, it was a lot of stuff to take in and she did really good.
Mhm. I should like to mention that before entering into this conversation, I listened to one of your songs, which is titled Heroes. And of course,
Oh yeah.
In Canada, Remembrance Day just passed. In America, they call it Veterans Day. So I'm
Mhm.
not sure if there's a connection between that song and remembering Remembrance Day. So can you elaborate on that?
There is. So, yeah, that song primarily is just for all of our emergency responders, military, police service.
Mhm.
My husband's a firefighter, so I just respect them so highly, and my grandpa fought in World War II. So I mean, they're really important. It's an important day in my life for sure. And so heroes, yeah, it's a nice kind of tribute to all of the heroes that are out there and everyday heroes too that we have, that people may not know about. But that song was actually written though. Uh, the Humboldt Broncos, I don't know if you've heard of that story. It's a very tragic story of a hockey team where basically half of the hockey team were killed in a bus crash. And
Oh,
this happened in 2017, I believe. And my dates are a little weird right now this morning, but so we kind of wrote that song out of that because that was just such a tragic event. It was, our first responders were so good on that event and being there. And then, everybody struggles, the parents, the players, the emergency responders after. It was, yeah, it was one of, probably the biggest tragedies in Canada for sure. And so that song was written out of them and a tribute to them as well. So it's kind of, yeah, it's a lot of there's a lot of meaning in that song, and I'm very proud of it. And yeah, it's for sure for Remembrance Day. It's always nice to have a listen to it. Remember our heroes that fought for us for our freedom.
Yeah, it's a wonderful song. I would urge
Thank
everyone
you.
to listen to it. I should say that the equivalent of Remembrance Day in Vietnam, my country of origin, would be the 27th of July.
Okay.
So in my family, my oldest uncle, my father's oldest brother, fought for the North Vietnamese army during the war. I
Wow.
think because of the rules of the draft, one family must send at least one child
Okay.
to battle, and so my oldest uncle, being the oldest, um, went. Yeah,
Yes.
he's still living. He's still in the
That's
military.
fabulous. He's still alive. Yeah.
Yeah, he's still living. He's still in the military. He loved the profession of it. He recently retired, but he retired happily. He's still very
Yeah.
active to this day, as far as I know.
Well, that's good, and we thank him and like I say, everybody else for their services because it's like I say, they're every day they're out there. I always say, kind of living, they're there for everybody's worst nightmares. So we always need to be thankful for them for sure.
Of course. Yeah. So let's talk about your humble beginnings in country music. So when was it? Where is your earliest memory? I must put it of your interest in country music or music in general.
Oh, yeah, music in general. I mean, my grandparents had a band and my parents had a band. So we were around music all the time. And, even just we had our own little family Christmas concerts and stuff like that. So, I don't remember my life without music. And so yeah, I was growing up. I had an older brother, so there was four of us siblings. We're called the 4Ks. It's Kurt, Christy, Kimberly, and Kyle. And so everybody knew us as the 4Ks, and lots of music. But my oldest brother, he got more into the heavy rock, the heavy metal. So I listened to, my parents played country music, Lee Greenwood, Dolly Parton, all those kinds of artists.
Mhm.
And then my brother listened to, Motley Crue, AC/DC. We listened to a lot of Bryan Adams, Metallica, all that stuff. So it was like a broad range of music for sure. And then I started listening to country music more in like my high school days, I would think. And that's kind of when like the Garth Brooks, Trisha Yearwood, Martine McBride, um, Shania Twain, all of those artists came out. And that's when I really started liking and singing country music. Though I've always been told, oh, Kim, you should be a rock singer. I've just always dabbled in the rock slash country kind of genres. And so even to this day, all of my shows include everything from, I sing some Bruno Mars, we do some Jason Mraz, Ed Sheeran, but then we do, a lot of the 90s country, a lot of the new country, and then also we do some Bryan Adams. Um, we do some Guns N' Roses, Sweet Child of Mine, like it's just a good mixture. And then teaching for 12 years. I've taught music for 12 years, and everybody, all the students bring me all sorts of different kinds of music. So I'm just always dabbling in that. But I would say the 90s country was probably my biggest influences, in my music career, because that's kind of the sound I wanted when I was recording, and that's kind of the voice I had. So I went with that kind of a sound for, starting my career out.
Mhm. Right. So I wonder if you came of age around the time of that period of country music, the 90s.
Oh yeah, the 90s are, and you know what? The 90s are still, I don't know what it's like where you live, but where we live, the 90s is all coming back. I mean,
Mm.
you go out to bars and you go out to clubs, which there wasn't a lot open for the last couple of years. So once everything started opening up, people would go out, and I mean, that's what everybody was playing, was the 90s country, and it's very popular today. And I think it might, kind of start going back that way a little bit. We'll see. But some of the recordings I'm hearing now have got that 90s kind of sound to it. So we'll see where it goes from here.
Hmm. I don't know about Vienna, but I know that in Vietnam, and my father, I believe he spent his 20s and 30s during the 90s.
Yeah.
That was when the Vietnamese economy was opening up to the world. So
Okay.
free trade and whatnot. And so there was a stream of American music pouring into Vietnam. And I remember Air Supply was it's
Oh,
a
yes.
prominent one. My dad really loves them.
Yeah.
And for a variety of reasons, if you if you are like a typical Vietnamese, your favorite foreign language music would probably be American pop from the 80s and 90s because that's when
Yeah.
we first encounter pop music in general.
Right. That
Mm.
makes sense.
Yeah, so that's very interesting.
That is cool. What is your favorite kind of music? What do you listen to the most?
Um, Recently, Leonard Cohen.
Ah, there you go. That's
Yeah,
a good that's a good guy to listen to for sure.
hmm yeah. He's becoming my favorite pop artist slash poet so far. Yeah,
Nice.
his songs are deeply laden with meaning. So,
Oh, for sure they are. Yeah. You can't get much more deep than Leonard Cohen, I don't think.
mhm. Right. So you said that you were in the music business for upwards of 2 decades. So I wonder, looking back on those 2 decades, what moments struck you as the one where you were struggling the most, and how did you overcome it?
Oh goodness, there's been many moments, being a musician, there's always lots of the highs, the lows, because you work so hard on like a certain project and then it's kind of done. And then they're like, "Hey, what's next? What's next?" So it's almost like every time after a project, that's kind of what it's like. And then you know, you somehow just figure it out. I mean, it's like a flow. Like right now I'm at that stage where I'm like, "Okay, now what am I going to do next?" So you're kind of thinking, and it's not as like the high as you normally would, right? It's kind of, what do I want to do next? And so I think, as in especially in 20 years, your taste change, what you want to record changes. So you always are kind of looking. It's the toughest part of the music industry is there's no path. There's no like, okay, you're going to do this and you're going to come out with this. It's like you're kind of all over the place, and that's what I think is probably the uh, most of a struggle for most artists, is there's no like path. You don't take schooling
Yeah.
and you become an engineer. You don't go to school and you become a nurse. It's like there's so many times where you don't really know where you're going and what you want to do. So I would say that's the biggest struggle. But the biggest highs are, they're worth that struggle, because when you do have, songs coming out to the world, you're connecting with people, you're doing shows. Um, those are some really big highs. So I mean, I think it evens out, right? Like any other job, there's always the highs and there's always the lows. And if you just keep on working at it, you just got to keep on working at it, and it'll
Mhm.
all pay off in the end.
Right. Actually, like to flip that question around a bit in that, what is the best moment that you've experienced in your country music life career?
Well, the best moment, I've had a few, and this might not be totally um, like music wise, but I think my music got me there because I was nominated um, to meet Oprah Winfrey,
Oh,
because I was teaching, and this lady nominated me for teaching and mentoring young children and young girls that were growing up and having music in their lives. And so I actually got to meet Oprah Winfrey. That was probably one of the biggest highlights of my life, of my career, because I mean, she's just one of my idols. I grew up watching her. I love what she stands for. I love what she does in the world. So I would have to say that's probably one of the biggest highlights in my career.
wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
Oprah. Oprah is known to be a very empathetic person, doesn't she?
Yeah, she's just, I mean, in every way, just so awesome. And she was literally, I probably could have sat down and had coffee with her. She was just so nice, and she just gave off such love. And yeah, it was one of my favorite moments.
Hmm. Right. So, of course, you are a Canadian country music artist. You're
Mhm.
living in Alberta, which, I wish you the best with surviving the upcoming winter months. I
Thank
know that,
you. We will need it.
yeah. I live in Peterborough, Ontario for a while, and the winters were pretty
Oh,
harsh. But I know
Yes.
that in Alberta, the winters can be quite brutal.
Yeah, that -40 is pretty fun sometimes, but we all just stay in and we get in our warm clothes and make sure you have lots of food in your pantry, I guess.
Mhm. Right. So I wonder, what is the difference, do you think, between Canadian country music and American country music?
Well, I think probably the main thing is production. Like they can, they have everything down in one place or a couple of places through the states, right? New York, LA, Nashville are bigger centers, and those people are all there. So to get a project done and to get the production quality that you need and stuff like that, I think is just it's just more there, and they tend they can put more time and more money into those productions. So you'll hear that so and so put $1 million into one single. Well, in Canada that's more difficult. We don't have the radio play is not available as much as the United States, right? And I mean, when the American artists are the big artists, to compete with them on radio and in the industry is very difficult. So, I would say they're just a bigger entity. They're just and that's where music has kind of originated there. So it's everything's like they say everything's bigger in Texas.
Mhm.
Everything's kind of bigger in America. That way, they just have more. I guess you'd say buying power and a little more power to have the play, right? So
Mhm.
their artists get played more. Um, and that's just the way it is right now. So for Canadian indies and even Canadian major label artists, the competition is just it's harder because their artists have more of people backing them up.
Yeah. So my next question would be, I wonder if in your 2 decades of being a country artist, has Europe ever been a stop to one of your live performances or even your many live performances? And secondly, I would like to ask, why doesn't Europeans have their version of country music?
Well, I know that there's quite a few. I myself have not been to Europe yet. I would love to go. That is on my bucket list to play some shows, because I hear that their crowds are just fantastic. We've had a few Canadian artists go over there, and they love it when they do shows
Mm,
over in Europe. And so, like I say, I have not yet. That's on my bucket list. And you know, I think the country music fans are starting to get more over there because we are doing more shows, but I'm not sure what it is, why country music hasn't hit hard over there, but I do think it's coming. Um, but I just think it must be just, the way they market things that the pop and rock genres have been more over country for sure. So, we'll get there, I think, and we just need to kind of keep, getting those grants out there for people to get so that they can go over there and because it's a lot of money and it's a lot of work to plan those tours. And so I know we do have some folks, especially in France and stuff like that, that are putting on bigger shows and planning tours. So, I would keep an eye out. I think it's going to get bigger and better as we go, but yeah, it's one of my bucket list items for sure.
well, yeah, I wish your wish shall be granted at some point in the future.
Yeah.
I have no doubt that North American country music has an appeal here in the European continent. One of my biggest surprises is that one of my previous guests on this show and a dear friend of mine, a young fiddler named Irish Millie, she's a local artist from Peterborough, Ontario.
Nice.
And last summer, or this summer, I believe, she toured in Denmark to
Mm,
perform traditional Cape Breton fiddle music. So,
nice.
I'm very much surprised that there's an audience for traditional Cape Breton fiddle music in Denmark. But what I was getting at is that unlike America and Canada, Europe has no homegrown country artists. I know that there are, Scottish and Irish folk, but there's no distinctive country music that I can find
Mhm.
that has been born out of Europe. So I wonder if you can share an insight as to how why that is.
You know, I'm thinking it could be because of the, the land, because there's not as much. So a lot of country music fans are farmers, and they are, there's rodeo, Western heritage. Do you know what I mean? So I'm thinking in Europe, and like I say, I haven't traveled over there so much, but I don't think there's that kind of a background and a history of farming and Western culture and rodeo and all that stuff that we have here, that makes them fans, right? Over in Europe. So I'm just thinking, like I say, because it came from such a history and culture of the, the old Wild West, or the history of music is because of people farming the land and all that kind of stuff. I think that's probably, just Europe doesn't have that history. They've got the more, they've got the history that I want to go see, like all the castles and, medieval times, and like Scotland and Ireland, like all that. Oh my goodness, Italy, France. I mean, I'd love to come see them countries. So, their music is it's just historically different. And so, that's my thoughts on it. I could be totally, I could be totally out to lunch and wrong, but I think that's why country music is specifically here is more prevalent and more, just more heard, is because of our Western culture, our farming culture. Yeah, so hopefully, maybe like I say, it can get on over there soon.
Mhm. Yeah, I think part of it also is because of the landmass. America
Hmm.
and Canada are much bigger countries than the European countries. So there's
For
that.
sure, for sure. Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
I should disclose that my interest in country music has been very recent, and specifically ever since I invited Martina to come on this program. So
Aw,
you can
cool.
you can credit your daughter, the great Martina Don, for igniting my
Oh,
interest in country music.
I will totally pass that on to her. That's so sweet.
So the reason why I was averse to country music for a long time is because of my problems with contemporary country music, which I perceive as a bit too male centric, and it advocates for a rather boorish kind of masculinity, if you know what I'm getting at. But the more I dive into country music, I find that it is not that male centric or as male centric as I expected, because there are plenty of great women in country music. I know that Taylor Swift used to be one. I'm not sure to what extent is she country now, but she started out that way, and all more power to her. So as a woman in country music, I wonder, are there unique challenges that you face, regarding the genre as well as your sex in this
Mhm.
environment, the industry in general?
Yeah, definitely. I think if you talk to, a lot of female artists, they will tell you, the same things. It has been a challenging few years for sure. It is like a lot of industries, a male dominated industry. And so when you are a female, you do have to go the extra mile, I believe. I was told, I remember right away, kind of when I started my album in like 2007, um, I had a record label say to me, "You've got three strikes against you. You're female, you're a mom, and you're married." And I'll never forget that. And I was like, well, so, like, I don't understand what you're saying. Because to me, like, as we were talking about the country music and how you were saying messages, previously there, like, kind of what is country music is about, storytelling. And in
Yeah.
my world, it doesn't matter who's telling the story, female or male.
Mhm.
Um, but for people that are buying tickets to the show, it's always, oh, they'll buy tickets to a man's show over a woman's, because when you talk about sex appeal and all that kind of stuff, I mean, people are just, that's still part of the industry, which is sometimes a sad thing, but it still can be a part of the industry, right? So, and men can dress in just a t-shirt and jeans, where a woman used to have to, like, really, dress heels and like that's how when I was in the industry years ago, that's how it was.
Mhm.
Now it's not so bad. Women can kind of, dress the way they want and look the way they want, and it's getting better for sure. But still, I mean, if you listen to the radio, it is predominantly male. And when you look at the bills for shows and the lineups, it's predominantly male. And people will have been fighting this for, the last few years, especially. Women are starting to speak up more. They have more, radio is starting to speak up for women, but it is still definitely a struggle. And I'm not sure how to get around that. I mean, we've had a couple of shows where we've booked only females, but then you get the other side of it. Well, now you're not booking, male acts. So it's it's definitely a struggle. Like I say, I think it's getting better. And I mean, it's just odd to me because the top selling artists are females, yet when when you look at radio and shows, males are still dominant. So it's an interesting industry for sure. And it's hard to, pick what's the right way and what's going to happen. And, I just try to do the best I can to promote female artists, to mentor female artists, and just really tell them, like anything else, you can do whatever you want to do, whenever you want to do it. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise, because if I would have let those three strikes against me, if I would have let them bother me, I would not be sitting here today. So
Of course.
hopefully that makes sense.
Of course, yeah. And we're all glad that you became the person that you are, a great country music artist and a great mom as well.
Oh, thanks.
So I think of Dolly when you mentioned the part where you had to use your sex appeal in order to, I guess, have an in of it. And you know, to be fair, Dolly did use her sex appeal in order to get into country music, but her sex appeal is not something that made her
No, she was
stay.
darn talented too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, she was talented. She had a lovely personality, of course, and yeah, I think about Dolly when I encounter this problem of not just in country music, but in pop music in general, in that females who are in popular music have the added pressure of the sex appeal, and in that to be a male artist in any genre, sex appeal doesn't have to be part of the package.
Mhm. I
But
mean, it's still, I think it still is. It's just in a different way,
yeah, I
I
know.
guess. Yeah.
Yeah, but in order to be a female artist in today's market, or at least any market since Madonna, maybe, um, sex appeal is like the required component almost. And that's why when you see the emerging pop artists these days, many of them would be very much not kid friendly at all in their attire and costumes and such. And
Hmm.
I wonder if it is part of, the pressures that they face from, the music business, or just because the culture in general has been more lax when it comes to, um, when it comes to these things.
Yeah. I don't know either. It's a tough one. And I mean, some of the people love it. I mean, they want to show that. And I think, if you got it, flaunt it. But if that's the way you want to promote yourself, and that's the way you want to promote your music,
Mhm.
have at her. I'm very much, even with Martina and myself, like I just want to do as long as you are comfortable doing it, have at her. If you're not comfortable doing it, you better say something. So, it's because it's going to happen everywhere. But as long as you're comfortable with doing whatever you're comfortable doing, I mean, I'm sure Madonna didn't. I can just, I don't know, I may be wrong, but I'm sure Madonna had people telling her stuff, but she chose what she wanted to do. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure there were some people pushed into it and everything, but that's where, hopefully they have people that care about them and will help them out. And that's just kind of like I say, when I'm working with my artists, I tell them, I'm like, do not let people do stuff you are not comfortable with. And there will be times where there's going to be that challenge. Everybody has that, but you have to stand up for yourself. And I think people respect you more. And like I say, put yourself out there the way you want to put yourself out there. And I mean, people are either going to like it, they're not. It's as long as it's you and that's your choice. That's what I applaud.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think there are a good number of female artists in general who who took advantage of their sex appeal, but I think too many are coerced into it. But
Possibly, yeah. I mean, we never probably will know, right? We'll never probably know what goes on behind the scenes
mhm,
most of the time.
right. So let's go back to the topic of women in country music because I think for the most part, country music, even today, as also in the classic era, is still male dominated, but that doesn't mean that there are a good number of brave, courageous, talented, brilliant women who made a name for themselves. Dolly is obviously one of them. There's Loretta
Mhm.
Lynn, the coal miner's daughter,
Yes.
who rest in peace to her.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, Patsy Cline, and I'm talking to one right now. And I'm thinking now of the great biopic, Walk the Line with Joaquin Phoenix playing Johnny Cash,
Mhm.
um, and Reese Witherspoon playing June Carter. And nowadays we all recognize Johnny Cash as sort of an icon. But as I've learned in that movie, it was June Carter who I think rehabilitated Johnny. Cash has this song, right? Because you're mine, I walk the line, and June
Mhm.
Carter made that happen. And if it hadn't been for her, Johnny would have flamed out like Elvis. So I guess as a better expert in country music than mine, tell us about your impressions on John and June Carter Cash.
Well, I think you're right for sure. I mean, you'll hear a lot of times, how a man is nothing without his woman and all that kind of stuff, and there's so many songs about that. And, um, it's back then too, a lot of women, were at home, right? And so they were there for their husbands whenever they needed them and stuff like that. But I just think in that kind of a situation and in that time era, for sure, thank goodness he had her. And, it is a movie too, so we don't know how much of it is totally true. And you know what I mean? But
Mhm.
um, I think in any relationship, if you have that other person that cares about you that much, I mean, they'll be there for you. I think June Carter was there for him like any other wife or husband would be there for each other, significant other, right? So um he's lucky he had that love in his life. And so is she. I mean, they were a love story for sure. And it's the music industry is hard because people are gone a lot. And but yeah, so if you can be like them and have each other and get through those struggles, because marriage is not easy. And I mean, that's like I say again, country music is so much about storytelling. And I think that's why people connect with it so much around the world, is because it tells stories in ways that are real life. And um, June Carter and Johnny Cash are very real life stories, even though he was a superstar and back then, yes, an icon still today. They were real people. And that's what country music brings back, is that real people even live,
Oh yeah.
and have their issues, but they can still get through them. And, but life is life. And country music, I think, really tells people about real life, which they unfortunately went through, had some hard times and stuff like that. But that is life.
Mhm. So my next question is going to venture into some personal territory if you are comfortable with it.
Hmm.
So to what extent is your experience as a wife and a mother influenced your songwriting process? And how do you balance the life of a musician with the life of, a family woman?
It's very challenging some days. And I mean, a lot of the times you do it for your kids because you want to be you want your kids to see that you can do whatever you put your mind to, you know, really work on your passion. Um, so that I hope I've been a good example to them. I believe highly in being a good example. So, um, but it's tough, like especially when you're pregnant,
Oh yeah.
and then the baby's just new. A lot of people are like, how come there's not a lot of moms in country music, or they're not moms until they get into it a little bit. I mean, Carrie Underwood didn't have any kids until she was quite
Hmm.
famous, right? And it's so hard because I'm like, you can't sing on stage very easily being 9 months pregnant. Like it's it's difficult, right? And there's a lot of, I mean, you're tired if your babies don't sleep. Like both my kids did not sleep. So I think when I had Martina, I wrote that song, My Priority, because basically I was like, you need like some time for yourself. So as a mom, I really started to, take even just 10 minutes of the day and just go and do something for myself, go for a walk or something like that, and that's what you need because in the side, it's like you have to take care of yourself to take care of others. And that is so true. I used to see that on the Oprah Winfrey show. And, it was about you need to look after yourself to take care of others. So I really highly believe in that. It's really difficult sometimes, right? But if you can just do little things like even I would go through the Tim Hortons drive-through, which is our coffee shop here. The Tim Hortons.
Yes, of course.
From living in Peterborough, it's like a big deal here.
Oh yeah.
Just to get an ice cap and just that was like my little moment, right? And if you can do that, and then, you know, you can be there for others if your mind and soul and everything, if you feel good, you can be there for others, be there for your kids. Um, it brings on more songwriting, like just all the experiences, right? So yeah, I think being a mom and a wife is tough in this industry, but you have to also have the support too. So my husband supports me like crazy, like 100%. Um, and yeah, you if you have the support there, that's another big one. So, take moments for yourself, have the support around you, and it does really help. And I think, like I say, thinking of your kids and being a good example, um, makes it worthwhile because you want everything for your kids. And that's why it's so special that Martina's in the music industry. My boy plays hockey. So that's what my life is really, is music and hockey. Like how more Canadian can you get, right? So yeah, music and hockey. And you know they work really hard, both of them. And I just always tell them, the sky's the limit, you can do anything you put your mind to. And so far they've both done really well. And that's what I hope as a mom and a wife, like, I can show them and just be there for my family and still though have that time for me and write songs, be creative and record and put that music out to the world. Because really, I'm just one of those people. I like to make people feel good. That's been my number one. I don't know. It's just my purpose in life, I think, is to make people smile, no matter if it's just saying hi on the street or, whichever. So if I can put a smile on their face or make them feel good or make them feel something with my music, that's what's important.
Of course, yeah. And in addition to being a accomplished country musician, wife, and mother, you're also a mentor to younger country musicians, particularly Martina, and additionally Megan Page, who I've had the
Mhm.
great pleasure of having on this program. She spoke very highly of you.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, tell me about your experience touring and mentoring these young talents.
Yeah, well, like I said, I taught for 12 years. I took last year off, so we'll see. We'll see if I get back into it. But I still work with a lot of young folks coming up in the music industry, and I love it because I mean, I had a lot of help when I was, coming. The music industry is a different ball game, and so if you've never done it, or it's just such a different world. And so if I always think I had good help. I want to help them who are coming up, right, as much as I can. So, yeah, Megan Page again was another one that she's been recording. She's been doing really well. And like I say, there's no map. So the more people and the better people you have on your team, to me is just a really great asset. And I'm really here in their corner. I'm here for them whenever they have questions. Sometimes I don't know the answers, but I'll try and find the answers. And, the music industry is constantly changing, and especially with all these, everything digital now. Of course, when
Mhm.
I, 20 years ago started, there was none of the Apple Music, I mean, TikTok, any of that kind of stuff, right? So it's ever changing, and I try and keep up. And I mean, those young, you know, gals and guys are a lot better at it than I am, but I try and keep up with the knowledge, and it's just, even though that they've grown up with all of the digital technology and everything like that, they still have, it's still in our human nature, even to be shy and to be, around that the 15 to 20 age, of still being, you're still learning about yourself even long. I mean, I'm still learning about myself, but you're wondering, what can I put out to social media? What do I want them to know about me? There's just so many, I'm pretty confident now in what I think, what I like, what I, but they're just like starting out.
Mhm.
They're still trying to, you know, I call it adulting, but I
Yeah.
mean, everything's so new to them. They're trying to live a whole new life from when they were little, right? That
Mhm.
transition from childhood to adulthood. And so with music, there's just so much information. Um, it's very overwhelming to them. So I just try and help out. And I mean, the ones I've helped out, man, they are doing so good. I could not have been doing what they're doing at their age. It's very impressive and amazing that they get out there and perform in front of the crowds they do, and they get on social media, and they're just so mature, and they're just so professional at such a young age, and I'm just super proud of them. Yeah, so I hope to keep helping whoever I can, and just keep creating good music, and creating, or not me creating, but helping them to be good humans, really.
Of course. Yeah, I hope so too.
Mm.
Um, so of course, I picture as a mentor, the most urgent lessons that you wish to impart on your mentees or proteges are the ones that you did not learn or you had to learn the hard way while you were starting out. So
Mm.
what are the examples of some of these lessons which you had to learn the hard way or you weren't taught at the beginnings of your career?
Oh gosh, there's so many. I would say maybe one of them is, don't take anything too personal. I still struggle with that one a little bit, even myself. And everybody's like always, oh, be confident, don't worry about what people think, yada yada. But that's really hard to do
Mhm.
when you're in the music industry, and everybody's listening to all of your music, they're listening to your interviews, they're watching everything you do on social media, pictures, everything. And you know some of these people on social media and such can be a little mean. You can get people commenting on different things. Most people that we've had have been super great, super fantastic, super nice, but you can get the odd ones, and it's funny how that one, not so great comment will get to you. And it's like, no, you got to focus on the positive. You got to focus on who brings you up, not who brings you down. So, um, in our industry, there's rejection like every day, rejection. Like you don't get that show, you don't get that showcase, you don't get that grant. It's every single day, and you cannot take it personally. As hard as that sounds,
Mhm.
you just have to keep going and know that there's next. Like I always say, just next. Okay, that didn't work out, next. And that stuff too, I know it's such a kind of a cliche, but everything happens for a reason. I highly believe in everything happens for a reason. So those are probably a few things that I would say are, in my mind, the most important is, yeah, don't take everything personally, next, and everything happens for a reason. You're
Mhm.
gonna be fine.
Of course. Um, so I'm going to do your job of praising your daughter Martina a bit, if you don't mind.
Oh, I don't mind at all.
So I should say that one of my favorite conversations in this podcast was the one that I had with Martina, and this is a reason. So as with every guest, I had to prepare a list of questions and prompts on my phone to ask them, and this is the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
thing I'm doing to
There it
you.
is. There we are.
In the case of Martina, I did the same thing, but 10 minutes in, because she is such a fun, lively, and interesting person, I kind of had to think on my feet. And so most of what I wrote on these notes had to be discarded in favor of whatever questions that I had on my mind at that time.
Yeah, yeah.
So I hope the interview was as enjoyable to her as it was for me.
Oh,
Um,
she loved it. She came up after and was like, that was so fun. But I mean, you don't have to talk much with her. She kind of gets that a little bit from her mother, the whole talking
oh
thing.
yeah,
So,
yeah, of course. In addition to country music, Martina unexpectedly also kind of got me interested in TikTok. I know that she
oh,
filmed her like daily TikToks, as you call it now,
her
and
vlogs.
sometimes you appear in it. And I finally understand where her sense of humor is coming from, and I'm talking to her right now. So, yeah, tell me about how the importance of a sense of humor, of course, but also a positive outlook on life. Because, as you've said, the tendency to take things personally is something that I share too, and I'm not even a country artist. So tell me about that,
Mm.
having a positive outlook and such.
Oh my gosh. I just think if you didn't, and I mean, there are days where you're just like, you want to curl up in a ball
Yes.
and not, right? And especially through COVID, like
Oh yeah.
that was tough. And that's where I kind of started. I did a show called Kim's Corner, and I did it every week for people. And that was where I got a lot of fans around the world. It was actually like, that's where I'm like, oh, everything happens for a reason. Yeah, COVID was not the greatest, but it made me think, it made me go into the digital world a little more than I had. I had never done really Facebook lives or any live shows on digital platforms at all. And so I mean, I just was like, okay, I'll try this. If I wouldn't have been thinking positively, I would have never in a million years tried it. But thinking positive will make you do things you wouldn't normally do. So I did that. I have fans from all over the world that, we have a group on Facebook called Kim's Crazies. And, we do fun stuff in that group. And, but I mean, for Martina, um and she's so different. She's actually a lot like her dad, where she's a real
Really?
person. Like, I'm one of these people that I am kind of a people pleaser, and I like to make sure everybody's happy, um and I kind of live in like a la dreamland, like everything's great and wonderful. Where her dad's very real and be like, okay, like let's just talk about this for real. And Martina's very much like that. But if you're positive and you do have humor to it, I mean, like nothing can really get you down for a very long time. Like I say, you'll be down. We all have our days, but you got to like find the positive in everything if you can, even if it's just a little like, oh my goodness, if you're in bed and you're cuddling and you're not having a good day, like the sheet is so soft.
Oh,
I don't know. I'm just trying, but you know what I mean? Like it will bring you out, and being thankful that, for everything that goes on. I really do believe in being thankful for, um, what you have in your life. And when you go to bed at night, like list 5 things you're thankful of. So I've tried to teach them, of course, when she was growing up, and even my son, when they're like teenagers, they're too cool for all that. But now she's like, oh, mom, I think I get it. Like, yeah, it is kind of nice. It does make you feel good when you think back in your day, what things happened and what you're thankful for. And I just think it can click you out of anything, being positive and thankful. So
mhm. Yeah, speaking of being thankful, I hope you and Martina and the family had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I know that it's a month away now, but yeah, still.
we did, yeah. And now the American one's coming up. So I think we should celebrate that one anyways, just for fun. Just so we can eat more turkey.
Oh yeah, always the turkey.
Yeah.
So in the conversation that I had with Martina and also with Megan Page, I was slightly embarrassed that I did not share their love for Taylor Swift. Um,
Oh,
so yeah, I guess her music just didn't appeal to me the same way that it appealed to them. So I guess my question to you is, yeah, how uh, how much is the appeal of Taylor Swift is to you? Like, do you enjoy her music? What do you think of her? I guess that's the question.
Oh man, I love Taylor Swift because, and I mean, but I'll be honest, I haven't listened to any of her new stuff yet. Her Midnight album, I think
Mhm.
it's called Midnight. I have not listened to any of that yet, so I'll have to do that. But because Martina was a massive Taylor Swift fan, and all these young kids that I work with are, yeah, I know a lot of Taylor Swift. Have we been to every Taylor Swift concert? She's come to Edmonton. Yeah, I think we've been to every Taylor Swift concert that she's come to Edmonton. I think Martina was 4 or 5 when I took her to her first one. So yeah, the Swift whole thing has hit our household, and she's still. I mean, Martina was just showing me one of her videos last night. So yeah, she is also in this household, and I mean, I love what she does with the younger girls, especially too. She cares so much about her fans. That's what I love about her the most, I think, is that she knows, who got her there, and she's just so gracious, and she's so well spoken, and she's just an amazing uh I always say young gal, because to me it feels like she's
Yeah.
a kid, right? But she's not. I mean, she's what, 30-ish years old, like, but yeah, and just her shows were just so inspiring to all the young girls. When you actually go to a show, they really do kind of gear everything towards having the girls learn, or young men too, right? Like it's all very she's very inspiring, very colorful, and very good to her fans. And I think that's most singers should kind of follow in her footsteps that way.
Mhm. So I would disclose the reason why I guess I was sort of turned off by Taylor Swift, and that
I
is
was gonna say, are you a Taylor Swift fan?
but I did try to be. I enjoy some of her songs that she did in her albums in, I believe, 2008, 2010, and 12 and 14. But in 2017, she released that album Reputation, and I just couldn't bring myself to listening to the whole thing. I think she was needlessly angry and aggrieved at
Yeah.
many things. I think even most Taylor Swift fans, and I'm not sure what Martina thinks of this, but most Swift fans would say that that is one of her like career lows. Like she didn't, she had better releases, which I believe she
Mm.
did afterwards. But yeah, that Reputation 2017, that was when Taylor Swift lost me.
Well, and she's such a huge songwriter, and she writes what she's living, basically, from what I've ever understood of her. So I mean, if she was in a hard time in her life, she would have wrote that and recorded it, and that's how it would have came out. And um, that's what songwriting is, really. Like there's some people that don't songwrite their life,
Yeah.
but I think she is one that does. And but I think it's still so appealing to her fans because it's real life. Like she's very candid, and her writing is very, like, it connects with you because that's real life. So I think that's why she's Taylor Swift. She just knows how to write and connect with people that are living just everyday lives, and going through, and her music just appeals to people on so many different levels that way.
Mhm. So, assuming that you do write your own songs, uh,
Hmm.
I wonder if the expectation of being a singer-songwriter has become so common today that, in the old days, I would say people like Sinatra and Elvis, they almost never write their own songs, but we still
So
regard
true.
them as great singers, performers. But nowadays, if you are a performer, you kind of have to put put your own words into your music,
Oh yes.
and
Yeah.
yeah, those are two very distinct skills, isn't it? So I guess as a singer-songwriter, how do you manage to mix and mash the combination of singer and songwriter into one?
Yeah. And it's interesting you asked that, because I never started really songwriting till I was around 27. Like I had written a little bit, but not like for my own projects, or not for like serious recordings. And I was always a performer. I just loved to entertain. but yeah, because through the past, I don't know how many years they've been pushing that the artist also needs to songwrite.
Yeah.
I mean, it's become crazy, the talented people that have come out and do everything. I mean, they're talented musicians, they're talented. Where we used to kind of be like, you were a really good singer, and that was enough. You were a really good songwriter. And I still do believe, though, I do believe that there are artists that are better meant to just perform. I think, that they should focus on just getting good songs, because there are the songwriters out there that are just such good songwriters that an artist would never write like that. So I still believe there's still room for just the singers to perform other people's songs. And I mean, there are still a lot of singers still doing that. They are writing, or sorry, performing other people's songs. It's just that people like Taylor Swift, people like Luke Combs, they've come out, and people know them, Chris Stapleton, they've been writing for years, and then they come out as an artist. So I think a lot of people then think, well, everybody writes. And I think everybody does write, and that's good. But there are also the songwriters, I mean, that write just such good songs that they still need singers to, record those songs, because the artist, will never maybe write a song like that. Like I never actually, it's hard for me to call myself a songwriter. I am more of a singer. That's just more of my talent. I love to entertain a crowd. Um, you know, that's just my gift, as being more of a singer and entertainer. Songwriting, I actually have to like work at. It doesn't come naturally to me, as natural as like some other songwriters. And so yeah, it's not something I do like every day. It's when I have a project or something, that's when I usually songwrite, when I have something coming up. It's not like it's very natural to me and I'm doing it all the time. So I just have learned that the pressure of being a singer songwriter, it's kind of a big pressure. So I'm like, if you're not feeling it, you're not feeling like you're writing good songs, go get some good songs from good writers and sing those songs, because they need somebody to sing those songs, because they're not singers. So it's gotten to where people don't think that they can record other people's songs in a way, like especially the up and comers. And it's like, no, you need good songs to start you off. So if you don't think you're writing good songs, go find them somewhere else, and they are out there.
So I'm going to end this lovely discussion that we have the same way that I ended Martina's and Megan's, and
With fireworks and
if I have the budget for it, but so far
yeah.
it's a simple question. What does music mean to you?
Oh my goodness. It means everything. I don't even know. It's like pretty much indescribable. Like it just brings feelings out that you just, nothing else does to me. And, some people like, they get such satisfaction from, a surgeon would get satisfaction from giving somebody a new heart. It's, it's such a different, that's such a different like example, but it's the same, because that satisfaction and that feeling, it's just that feel, like music makes you feel. In me anyways, I don't feel anything else that way. So it inspires me, it makes me feel good, it makes me cry, it makes me think of other people that I love. um, it makes me feel good to you know be performing in front of people and making them feel things. um, it's lovely that you connect. I mean, people will say, I heard your song, and I was just having the worst day and it made me feel so much better. So really, it's just everything. It's like I say, I can't describe it very easily, but it's pretty much in everything of my life. And I always say, oh, I should do something else, in my career. I should find another career, and I just can't seem to get away from it. It's addicting, and it's just probably the best thing in my life that I have. I know I always have music to fall back on with for anything.
Well, and on that note, thank you very much, Kim Simon, country
Thank you.
musician extraordinaire and a mentor to younger country musicians, for being on this show and sharing your insights and experience.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming on the show again, and I wish you and your family all the best, and take care of yourself.
Thank you. You too.